Hello everyone, BL here, checking in with you all, hoping that you're doing well, working on the pieces to your puzzle. Just wanted to come on a little bit and talk about the tracking of this pandemic. And as you know, there's a lot of censorship going on, so we have to be careful with the words that we use. If y'all remember in one of my previous videos, and if you've just been paying attention, you're hearing, or you should have heard, how the demographics continue to change. At one point it was only celebrities were getting it, and next thing you know, regular everyday folk getting it. At one point it was rich only, now everyone's getting it across all socioeconomic levels. At one point it was white folk only, blacks can't get it. Well, not white folk only, but blacks couldn't get it. Next thing you know, you got black folk getting it. At one point it was certain locations. Now it's, I won't say everywhere, but just about everywhere. I'm going to show you another map in a little bit. At one point it was the old, the elderly, those with comorbidities, etc. Now it's the young, the healthy. I even saw something with a baby, not even 2 years old, getting it and dying. But if you notice, each time we go to people go to questioning, especially when they're, using social media to question, well, why isn't so-and-so getting it? Why isn't so-so? All of a sudden you see reports of these people being affected. And I just popped in today just to have a look at the map. And actually this was my second time even looking at a map. The first time I looked at a map, I noticed where the pathogen, I'll say, was and was not. And today I'm looking again and I see the changes. And what I noticed before was Russia was significantly underrepresented, if you will. And I don't know if that's the correct word, but I just know I did not see a lot of infections coming out of there. We don't hear very much about them. Now for the last 2 years, that's all we heard about was Russia, 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 Russia. Now all of a sudden we hear nothing about them. Not even their infection rate, how they're doing, how they're managing it, nothing. Today I happen to look and I see a large number. And if we can go ahead and flip on them, actually we're going to go ahead. Okay, sorry about that. Same time I had a phone call. Okay, so I'm back. So yeah, if we look at this, I popped in today to the Times to look at this map. To track the outbreak, and in case you guys didn't know, and you see this is updated April 2nd, 9:30 Eastern in the morning. It's sick in more than 946,000 people. Here's their map. Total cases and then deaths. And still, see this large percentage here, 214,000. That, you know what? And I won't be a stickler with all these numbers because they continue to change and some of them are not even accurate. We've had some jurisdictions come back and change their numbers, either increasing them or decreasing them, saying some deaths were incorrectly attributed to COVID and some should have been but weren't, etc., etc. So at this moment, that's not my focus. But I just want you to look at this map. China, we've got the UK, Poland, Spain, Malta, this whole area right here. Iran, US. Small amount in Canada. But this map is which kind of caught my eye, where the cases are rising fastest. So if we've got questionable tests, which actually I'm doing a separate video on the testing, but if we have questionable tests, a questionable quantity of tests are coming back, they're showing to have been faulty, or they're showing to be contaminated in and of themselves. What are we using to make these diagnoses? I asked that question before, I ask it again. And how do we know that this rate of rising, they're doubling every 3 days in these locations, in Ukraine and in Turkey? And then every 3 to 5 days, they're doubling in Canada, in the U.S., in Russia, etc., etc. Now, mind you, what did I just say a little bit ago? Recently, Russia, we didn't hear about them at all. There are very few cases. I mean, I don't remember how many there were, but it was a very small number. And they were quiet as a mouse. Now all of a sudden, their numbers are doubling every 3 to 5 days, roughly. And you've got the other countries here, India, and Uzbekistan, and some South American countries, etc., etc. Turkey and Ukraine. Now, what about those no cases reported or fewer than 100 cases in places like Greenland? It's only 10. Mongolia, 14. And they have a population of, I think, roughly 3 million, somewhere thereabouts. The 3 million population, they only have 14 cases. What are they doing? They're doing something right. But here, look on the continent of Africa, or what we call Africa. Now, this graph has changed. This map has changed significantly since last week when I looked at it. We see the increase here, Morocco and Algeria, even down here to Congo. Now, what I saw before was just Nigeria, primarily, and South Africa. Now we've added a lot of the coastal cities here. Not a lot, but not cities, countries. A couple of coastals, and we've got a rapid increase. Take note of something. Ivory Coast, which is right here, you have 190 cases as of this morning per the New York Times. Where is Senegal? Senegal is over here. 195. And then, in Ghana as well. 195. What's the likelihood that these countries all right next to each other, these two are right, they're neighboring, but Senegal is kind of here in the area as well. And they have, if not the exact same number, a very close number of reported cases, and a similar number of deaths, 195 to 1, 190 to 1, and 195 to 5. Move over here to Nigeria, 174, which is kind of strange because last week Nigeria had a large number of cases and those other countries had very few, close to none almost. Now all of a sudden Nigeria has fewer cases than they do. Here in Cameroon, 255. Pay attention to the locations. Haven't we been on supposedly the year of return, and you got a lot of people going back and forth in these parts, doing their genealogy checking and trying to connect with their roots, etc. Yeah, it's possible they could be transporting the disease or the pathogen, back and forth. Just a thought. You go a little further into that. But Congo, now here down in South Africa, large numbers. Now supposedly they're not moving as fast. They're doubling at a much slower rate. Now, one other thing I wanted to take note here. New reported cases by day across the world. New reported deaths. Isn't that strange? How this graph correlates so clearly, or so directly with this graph. I mean, so to the point where they're almost, I won't say almost the same, but it's just uncanny that the correlation is so almost the same. Confirmed cases in the U.S. Now this is still New York Times. They have an interactive map. You can go to their website and see it at any time. Now, New York, New Jersey, Boston, Massachusetts, Connecticut, that whole area is hotspot right now. Washington. One other thing I wanted to make note of. It's not here. Where is it? Let's see. Is that it? Nope, that's not. Here's another map. This is by the Johns Hopkins University of Medicine, and I don't think there's anything in there right now that we need to see. But they're telling us the next epicenter. They're constantly telling us what the next epicenter is going to be. How do they know? How do they know? And the next epicenter winds up being, or the next large demographic of people that contract this pathogen winds up being the demographic that people begin to question why they haven't gotten it or what's going on with them, etc. All of a sudden, that's the next one. Now, I will say several people have debunked some of these reports. Several people are coming out saying, no, my dad did not die of this pathogen. He already had heart disease. He had a heart attack. Or my grandma was already old and she had, she was struggling with post-cancer treatment or whatever the case may be. Her immune system was weak. So we know that can happen whether you got this pathogen or any other pathogen. It's just a rash of those coming out. And I encourage people to continue to speak out so that we can get more accurate numbers and gauge better exactly what's what. Because the mainstream media is just, I don't know, the numbers that they're giving us, the reports that they're giving us just don't seem quite kosher to me. And I'm hearing a lot more people beginning to speak out, usually on social media, clarifying, verifying, no, their loved one did not die of this particular pathogen. Their loved one died of something else and it was blamed on this pathogen. But something I wanted to show you as well. But here again on this New York Times article, it says very clearly, while the outbreak is a serious public health concern, most people who contract this particular pathogen do not become seriously ill, and only a small percentage require intensive care. Older people and those with existing health conditions like heart or lung disease are at higher risk. If that's the case, why are people not working? Why are people locked in their homes? Why is here, like in this case, a judge is now ordering the National Guard to go door to door, questioning people about whether they've contracted this particular pathogen or in proximity of someone who may have, etc., etc. They now have to come into your homes to question if you possibly have it. Kind of questionable to me, people. Questionable to me. And it's very clear here that they're not on a law enforcement mission, that they are on not humanitarian, a medical mission is what they call it, not humanitarian, I was going to say. So this says very clearly, they, something I wanted to also highlight here. Clay Jenkins, this judge, tapped the brakes, conspiracy theorists, National Guard nurses, they wear military uniforms, but they're still nurses. Yeah, we know that. They're doing tracing interviews only. They have no authority to quarantine anybody. Only DCHHS can quarantine, and only a person who is pathogen positive, non-compliant, and refuses to stay in. So how do they know if you're pathogen positive unless they test you? I have a separate video coming out about these tests, so y'all might want to pay attention to that. But that's what I wanted to share in this particular situation. Just pay attention to the maps periodically, and I won't say you look at this thing every day, because it can, it makes somebody depressed. Some people might get frustrated because this is all unfolding right before our eyes, and folk aren't questioning enough or speaking up enough or whatever's going on. But periodically look at it, because you need to prepare yourself for whatever supplies you may need, just whatever it is you need to do for you and your household. But in the meantime, take care of yourselves, continue to work on your puzzle, and remember, your puzzle is not just your interaction with the people around you or your particular life story. Your puzzle is also comprised of these things that are going on in the world today. and how they impact you, what they may be trying to tell you, what they may be trying to show you, what it is you may or may not need to do or change, correct, etc. This is a piece to all of our puzzle in some way. So keep that in mind, and just, kind of meditate on it, pray over it, whatever it is you do, to see how this puzzle, this piece fits into your puzzle. And be well.